Well, welcome to another episode of the Residential Developer Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Nathan Battishall. And today I want to talk about a topic. This is something that's come up a lot, especially the last 18 months. I want to talk about duplex knockdown winners. A lot of duplexes that are quite feasible tend to be in infill areas. For me, I'm not a huge fan of doing duplexes in new subdivisions, although it can work in the right area. For me, duplexes tend to work best in infill, areas of infill, and which generally involves a knockdown. Now, a lot of times people obviously duplexes are my core business. I've spent a lot of my working life and career in and around duplexes, everything from design, planning, approval, feasibility, acquisition, town planning, the entire piece. I've been in and around it, construction management, approval management, the entire works, and obviously my own development background as well. And I've found the last probably 18 months, a lot of sites are not stacking up. And I think even prior to that 18 months, I think a lot of sites still didn't stack up. But I think in tighter markets, you've got to be creative. You have to have a bit of a plan of attack when you're going in from an acquisition point of view. And I think a lot of it comes down to lack of knowledge, lack of understanding, lack of education. And obviously in this episode, the idea is to give a little bit of extra insight or extra little bit of education. Am I the expert in this space? I guess I would say to a degree I am. But do I have all the knowledge and all the answers? 100% I don't. But look, at the end of the day, like all of our episodes, I want to continually give value. I want to continually help educate investors, developers, individuals wanting to do projects, residential projects. So I hope this episode gives you a little bit of understanding, a little bit more knowledge, puts a little bit more of an arsenal in your toolkit to be able to go out and acquire the right site. Now, for me, there's a real art to finding a suitable knockdown. And unfortunately, a lot of people miss that art, and a lot of people are constantly coming, and we spend a lot of our week, my team, doing a lot of feasibility work where we've got a lot of clients that come in with either a site they've bought or a site they're looking to buy, on market, off market, you name it. And they're obviously wanting to see if it's firstly viable from a planning point of view and a feasibility, and then obviously wanting to go down the feasibility route to see if it stacks up. And look, one of the common things I see is a lot of people look for a site and they think beauty, it meets the minimum lot size, it's in a great area, it ticks a lot of boxes. But the problem is you look at the property and often it's an overcapitalised property where it's someone's long-term owner-occupied dwelling where it already ticks a lot of the boxes in terms of what's going to net the best resale for a single house. Like it might be a 2-story house, might be double garage, 4 to 5 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms, 2 living areas, often with a pool out the back. It's got the works. So essentially what it attracts is someone wanting an already completed house that doesn't require extensive renovation, something that's in a really nice, established, excellent location. And so what happens is someone is looking at that site and goes, beauty, I can fit a duplex on this site, or I can fit a detached dual lock or on this site. It meets the minimum requirements, all that sort of thing. It's in the right area, perfect spot, perfect location. But the moment that it's got an overcapitalised property on it, or just essentially a property that essentially means that resale of that property as it currently stands is going to be, quite overcapitalised, which is great for the seller but not great for yourself as the buyer. Straight away you'll see the numbers don't stack up. And that's where, for me, there's an art to it. Just because you can fit a duplex on a site doesn't mean you should. And for me, that's why you'll see a lot of properties, and I'm seeing it, a lot of properties sitting on the market. A lot of them they've tried to flog them off market. Agents have tried to flog the sites off market to their VIP groups and all the different strategies and ways they do it. Numbers don't work. Numbers don't stack up. then it sits on the market for ages. And generally, the way it will sell is it's the exact property, or it's the perfect ideal property for a long-term owner-occupier who purely wants to buy that property for their own residence, because it meets a whole bunch of the criteria. Might be close to cafes, might have some water views, close to the beach, walking distance to some shops, close to schools, walking distance to a bowling club or a local yacht club, or it could tick a whole lot of those sort of boxes so it can sit for a while. But often I'm seeing a lot of these ones where agents are promoting that you can fit a duplex or you can develop the site, and it just sits there for ages. And often it's because if you look at the property, it's quite an established property of a decent size. As I said, it ticks all the boxes, hits all the numbers for a property that, for me, the current vendor is going to do quite well out of when they sell it from a capital growth or from a reselling point of view, but it's not generally going to be ideal for an investment or a development point of view. So for me, it's just there's an art to it, but it's not like it's a rocket science either. But I think you tend to get a feel, and this is where it's important. And in next week's episode, I'm actually going to talk about testing your feasibilities and that sort of thing. But it's important to really understand what are some things that can, like how you can find undercapitalised projects. We talk a lot about overcapitalisation, but, I think it's important to look for sites that are undercapitalised. And there are properties out there. And look, yes, a lot of them are off market, but you do see a lot of properties that also sit on the market. They're just waiting to be sourced, to be discovered, to be looked at. And in all of my history of being involved in hundreds and hundreds and probably pushing over 1,000 duplexes now in terms of my professional background, one of the things I've seen and I do see where people can generate wonderful, incredible wealth through knockdowns, knocking down a residence and putting a duplex on, is finding these undercapitalised single dwelling houses that have a lot of instant equity and uplift the moment that you are able to take one single dwelling, remove it, and be able to put two titles, two dwellings in the right location, in the right area. So for me, there's a couple of things. And obviously, first and foremost, it's Development 101, Investment 101. You need to study the area. Like, you need to understand what is it about that area that makes it tick and makes it strong. So for me, I love this. I love doing these type of developments, and I love when I've got a lot of clients that love doing these type of developments in high demand areas where you can. There's a proven history of excellent resales from a duplex point of view. Now, I'm talking about it from a duplex point of view. You can essentially grab what we're talking about today, and you can also bolt that into other types of development too. So you can bolt that if there is a proven track record of developments of that type in that area, whether it be terraces or some multi-dwelling or detached dual locks, that type of development as well. So you can get this episode and bolt it on to another strategy. I just want to talk about it from a duplex point of view because that's obviously the most common type of development a lot of people are doing on these typical infill blocks that have got the old house on it, and you pull it off and you replace it with two dwellings. So the first thing to do is to make sure, don't look for properties that have a very overutilized established house on it that is in good condition. So first and foremost, find a house that's in poor nick. That's as simple as it gets. Don't look for the big 2-story or basement, big pool out the back, huge entertaining areas, 5-bed, 4-bed, 2.5 bath, house that's in great condition. Has been very well kept, very well maintained, very well loved. A lot of the block's been utilised. It's virtually fully maxed out in that space. Now, every now and then you can get lucky. You can secure a site like that where you can knock the house down and create instant equity through doing a duplex, but you'll often find you won't, because what will happen in that type of property tends to sell for market price, or generally an above market price, or up and around that space. And the problem is then you run into problems then in trying to create equity. And a lot of the equity in these type of developments comes through the land, obviously. But if you've paid overs for the site because you've had to pay overs due to the quality of the property, you're already behind the eight ball, and you're already running uphill. So you've got to look at things through the lens, which a lot of people don't look for. Okay, don't just look at size. Don't just look at compliance. You've got to look at the quality of the property, of the knockdown that you're looking to remove. Okay. Recently, I helped someone with a duplex in a really nice area close to the beach. It ticked a lot of boxes from a location point of view at first. One, it was a flat block. Now, duplexes, it's inevitable. A lot of duplexes are perfect for the downsizer. Okay? Absolutely perfect for the downsizer. People look either just about to retire, looking to retire, looking to downsize. So it was on the beach. So a lot of people want to retire to the beach. It was flat, which is perfect for the downsizer. Obviously met all the right requirements from a size point of view. The back face north, so again, for a downsizer, winter sun, beautiful. Like it's a winner. Now the other great thing about this site was the opportunity to do a single story duplex. Again, perfect for the downsizer. Not everyone wants to max out a site. So it was perfect in that regard. But a couple of big things now, it was in a terrific location, so close to shops. So there's coffee shops, there's a little IGA, there's a little food works a little bit up the road as well. You've literally got a 5-minute walk to IGA, to 3 or 4 cafes, takeaway shops, bottle shop. It was literally probably a 10-minute walk to the train station, about a 5-minute walk right onto the beach. There's schools nearby. There's a bus stop right nearby. And again, like I said, extremely flat site. So it's an absolute cracker in that regard. Now, you can get all those things working for you, but the other winner on this site was that it had an undercapitalised property on it. This particular site, it had a property that the current owner, it was an investment property, had it for ages. It had sort of come into disrepair. The house was a bit of a mess. It's been rented out for the last 15 years, so hadn't been owner-occupied. Quite a lot of disrepair. The owner of this property had started to do a bit of a renovation and had discovered more and more issues. Like any older property, once you start to pull the bones, once you start to pull the skin off, you start to see the lack of health in the bones. And this particular property, the more the owner sort of pulled back the curtain, the more they realised that they were running into a bit of a mess. Now, from their point of view, obviously a half-renovated house then, or a half-gutted house, straight away the equity drops on that property. For one reason or another, the particular owner either didn't have the funds or didn't have the drive to do the renovations required to put that back on the market, and obviously try and sell it for the price it possibly could as a more renovated house. Years of disrepair, obviously a whole bunch of things gutted in the property, the ability to be able to, for the new buyer to be able to discover that there's a whole bunch of structural issues and a whole range of constructability issues with this property. All of a sudden you are able to potentially buy a property that is undercapitalised, and that's absolute liquid gold when you were doing in this development space. So we were able to really I was able to help my client in this space really determine what we could do on this site, because it hit a lot of numbers already from a what type of product you could put on it, the location, it met all of that criteria, but then the ability to get an undercapitalised site, get it a whole lot cheaper than, get it potentially $200,000 to $300,000 cheaper than a lot of other houses are going on that in that area. Straight away you're right ahead of the game, and the numbers start to look quite healthy and quite terrific in that space. So, but the other advantage of this property, a whole bunch of the house had already been gutted, so some of the demo had already been taken place. But the other good thing about this property is that it was a single-story house. Anyone here would know that, the bigger the property, the I guess the more it's going to cost from a demolition point of view. And, I see all different prices of demo these days, ranging from 20, 25 grand, and you can get up around that 45, 50 grand and more once you start to look at things like if you've got large trees on the site, pools that need to be removed, basements, suspended concrete slabs, double brick, top and bottom. There's a whole bunch of things that can really chew into your feasibility as well from a demolition point of view. So for me, this property was great because it was not only was it single story, but it was all lightweight timber flooring, so it was barriers and joists. It was lightweight cladding, corrugated roof, no asbestos, which is absolute gold. So again, from a demo point of view, you can get the costs are right down, but the time, all that side of thing, it was terrific, and it didn't have large native trees on it. Everything worked well, like it sloped to the street. Again, like I said, could fit a single-story product on it, targeting that elderly demographic. But for me, that was absolute gold, and that was a prime example of looking for a site that is undercapitalised. Now, it was undercapitalised from the point of view that the house was in huge disrepair, single story, small property that's been rented out for a long, long time, huge amount of issues on the site, disrepair, hadn't been maintained, hadn't had a lot of TLC. So again, able to buy the property between 200,000 and 300,000 under the median market value in that area. Again, then being able to build a product that's single story, it's a cheaper build cost then obviously instead of a double story. Again, it's hitting an echelon, a market that desires and demands that. It's on a flat site. It's ticking all the boxes, close to the beach, close to the shops, close to services, close to the chemist, close to the train station, 5-minute walk to the beach, coffee shops nearby, food works, IGA nearby, everything. It's ticking all these boxes. Bang, tick, 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 tick. So for me, that's a product that is absolute gold. But you know what? You could do a duplex, and I did this as an exercise, ran a feasibility 3 doors down on a completely overcapitalised property that I knew had sold only, I think it was about 4 months prior. So we're able to punch those numbers of what that property sold for, okay? What that property sold for, building the same product on it, okay? And all of a sudden you go from a property that's about 22, 23% margin on development costs against a property that doesn't even hit 5%. It was like 3%. It's a development that just does not work. It does not stack up. So for me, that's the difference between same area, same shape of block, same size of block, same location, but the one difference was one property was overcapitalised, the other property was an undercapitalised site for a knockdown. So, for me, that is a prime example in an infill area of what to look for. Another good example of one I was involved in was a property, beautiful location, like absolutely cracking location. Again, a fairly flat block, not overly sloped to the street from a stormwater point of view. Again, this particular house, it was a different scenario. It was a long-term owned property. It was owned long-term. The particular occupier had let the house go into disrepair. They've lived there for a long, long time. Originally, it used to be a family holiday house. This particular gentleman then retired into this property, lived there for a long time. Just a typical knockabout Aussie bloke who, just for one reason or another, didn't do a lot of renovations to the house. Again, had fallen into a bit of disrepair. And for him, the house was sort of getting to the point now where it was time to move on. Now, in his case, it's been in the family for a long, long time. So it's a property that, who knows, they probably paid 40 or 50 grand for it a long, long time ago, 40, 50 years ago. And then over time, that property had grown and grown and grown from a capital point of view to the point where it was worth, over $2 million now, and with very minimal work that had ever been done to the property. So for his point of view, he's just sat on a property that's turned into gold, a pot of gold over that period of time. So in his eyes, he's winning, which, you can't argue with that. He sat on a property, had no debt on it for years and years and decades. And then over time, it's just grown because of how desirable this property was. But a couple of things about this property that I love, and it's something I think it'll help educate people who are looking for waterfront type properties or properties that have potential ocean views. The thing that was incredible about this particular site was that it was a single level house, okay? Beautiful location. Again, close to the cafes, close to some nearby shops, a bottle shop, a little small grocery shop, close to a chemist, and it was close to the beach, bus stop nearby, in a really good area, and it was only literally probably a 5-minute walk down to the beach. So ticks a lot of boxes to help sort of push it into that really high demand echelon. A lot of properties in that area selling for sort of 3 million, 3.2, 3.5. So this property was just over 2 mil. Now, obviously, that's a high sort of end development you're looking to do on that site. The thing about this property was that it was an underutilized property because it was a single-story property, and as a single-story development, you didn't get any ocean views. You had to actually build up to get ocean views. So first and foremost, the house was in disrepair. It was basically, yes, this house was in better condition than the other one, but it was still a very underutilized site. Like, it was only using a very small percentage of the floor space ratio available to it. But it was the type of property that it'd take a fairly extensive effort to put a second story on top of it. And you start, by the time you get to that point, you start spending a lot of money on the renovation. You're nearly at the point where you're better off demoing the site. But the thing I loved, the big thing about this one, and this is a big one for waterfronts, is that if you can find a property that doesn't currently have water views versus a property that does have water views, this is where a lot of people often are looking at these big McMansions on the water, or even if they're older, the moment they've got one incredible water views from the first floor or any floor, but the moment you've got a 2-story product with excellent water views on the property, in certain areas, you can add $500,000, you can add 3, 4, 5, 6, 700, even over $1 million to that the value of that property straight away because of the views. But if you can find these little hidden gems, and they're all up and down the east coast of New South Wales, and all up and down any coastal area of Australia, mind you, if you can find these little hidden gems where they're undercapitalised purely because the property does not have any water views, you can often get these properties a lot cheaper. And if you're going to knock down anyway, these are the excellent type of properties that you can capture. And and then in this instance, the idea was to do a duplex. This particular one, the idea was to have a duplex with a reverse living to get all the living up on the first floor. This particular site faced north, so it made sense to put all your living up on the first floor, put your alfrescos to the front to capture, first and foremost, to get the northern aspect, to get the northern sun, winter sun, but also obviously to capture those incredible water views that weren't captured otherwise on that house. So, that was the difference between a FISO just going through the roof. But, you buy a site anywhere else on that street, you're looking at 2.8, 3 million, even upwards of 3.3, 3.5, even for some properties. And the moment, again, you run your FISO, you run a dual FISO, a FISO on that site, undercapitalised site, versus one where you're paying 3.2, 3.3, This one here makes like very little margin, and you're putting a huge amount of capital in to be able to pull the trigger on that development, versus this one where straight away you're putting instant equity into that property. In that regard, it's an absolute winner. So for me, a couple of takeaways from this episode. If you are going down that path of wanting to do a knockdown rebuild duplex in a really nice infill area, my recommendation: look for properties that are undercapitalised. If it's to do with views, like especially water views, look for properties that don't currently have views, but once developed will have views. Because that, for me, that's an absolute gold opportunity. If it's in areas that are just really good locations, like that first duplex location I mentioned, like where it's a flat site, it ticks all the boxes, it's close to a lot of services and desirable elements that put it in that terrific echelon. Look for properties that are easy to demolish, properties that are really undercapitalised, that are those ones that are in disrepair are great. If you can find those properties that have been half gutted, they can be excellent as well. Obviously, they can be competitive, especially because a lot of people are out there looking for them, but also off market. Sometimes you go and knock on doors or get buyers agents or people out there that are hunting for sites, helping hunt for sites for you. You'd be amazed that sometimes the reason why a house has gone into disrepair is because someone may have hit a retirement age now and they just can't afford to do the renovations on the house to put it on the market, but they are open to selling. A lot of these people are open to selling, especially when a lot of them are in that boat or in that position where they can see the house is getting more and more run down. They're no longer, but they can't afford to do the work, or they don't want to take the risk to go and refinance and to do the work, and because they're afraid they might overcapitalise. And a lot of them, if they get offered a reasonable price, and again, don't forget, the best ones to target are people that have owned these for 20 or 30 years because they've seen incredible capital growth over a period of time on their properties anyway, so they already feel like they're winning. But if you can buy those sites, those undercapitalised sites, you can put instant equity into them, and all of a sudden you've got a duplex that stacks up. And I think that's where a lot of people come undone, because they haven't done their homework. All they've looked at is the compliance of, yes, it can be done, and they've looked at the resales of what can be done in that area, but they've shot themselves in the foot by buying a site that was already overcapitalised, or a site that just does not stack up from a knockdown point of view. So look, I hope you enjoyed this short episode. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, share it around with people you know that might want to do projects, and we'll see you next week.